Well, now for round 4, and where there's motor racing, there's Murray Walker.
At the very moment that you look at them live, sitting there on the grid for this 20-lap 5th round of the Marlboro British Formula 3 Championship are the competitors, and there is the man most likely to succeed on the basis of this year's form, 24-year-old Johnny Dumfries in his BP Dave Ralt VW. And Dave Price, the man who's managed him, and Johnny Dumfries has dominated the series so far this year because he won at Silverstone and at Thruxton. He's won the European Championship round at Donington. He won again at Silverstone and took 2nd place in the European round at Zolder last weekend. And alongside him is Alan Berg, the young Canadian who's come from Formula Atlantic the year before last. Then in the 2nd rank of the grid, and this is a fine achievement, number 10, the Dutch driver Cor Oyser, in one of the very few cars in this race that is not a Ralt. That is the John Robinson Magnum, and going very well it is too. And equally meritorious, number 30, Tony Trevor, 4th fastest, because he had trouble in the first practice session. He's very much a virtually unsponsored driver, does it all himself, and it's a terrific performance to get into that 4th position on the grid. Then Mario Heighton, the Swiss driver, and number 4, the very fancied Andrew Gilbert Scott, who was so outstanding in Formula Ford last year, winning the Formula Ford final at the festival at Brands Hatch. Well, there they go, around the warm-up lap before the start of this 20-lap race.
Well, yes, Murray, they're now warming up their tyres, going round to collect the green flag. They'll stop on the grid for only 10 seconds before the off, and now's the time to get the driver settled, to warm up the tyres and prepare yourself for a good start. Russell Spence, of course, 2nd in the championship, is way back on the 11th position on the grid, having had problems in practice, and he's a real charging racer, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how quickly Russell Spence can get to the front. Meanwhile, those on the front row are just going to be concentrating on making a really clean start and getting away.
Yes, Tiff mentioned Russell Spence, the Bradford driver who has come up from Formula Ford 2000 this year and who won brilliantly at Zolder last weekend in the European round of the British Formula 3 Championship. And Russell Spence has had all sorts of problems setting up his car. He's only in 11th position, and he's forecasting a terrific race for victory because there's several others who've got the same dilemma. Andrew Gilbert Scott, Paul Radisich, the brilliant young New Zealander, over for his first season of Formula 3. So now they exit the club chicane and gently make their way up to the grid. And as soon as they get into position on the grid, Sid Offord, who will be starting the race and is on the gantry overlooking the grid, will switch the lights from red to green, and then they will be away. So on the left, Johnny Dumfries, 24 years old, comes from Fulham, leads both the European and the British Formula 3 Championships. In the blue Ralt with the white number 3, Alan Berg. In the background, Cor Oyser, the Dutch driver in the Magnum. Then Tony Trevor. Behind Cor Oyser is Mario Heighton, and number 4 is Andrew Gilbert Scott. And a superb start from Dumfries. Cor Oyser trying to go through on the inside. Alan Berg staying up with both of them. They go round the right-hander at Allard. Now the complex Campbell, Cobb and Seagrave, the right, left, right bends are very tricky on the first lap. Dumfries very much in command at the present moment, with Oyser trying to go through on the inside. Alan Berg holding that 2nd position as they go up now towards Kimpton, the swinging left-hander, then round towards Goodwood and Village, and they're up into 5th gear, doing about 125 miles an hour now, and it's Dumfries leading. It is Berg in 2nd place, Alan Berg, who was 2nd at Silverstone, and Andrew Gilbert Scott has come up from that lowly position on the grid, the 6th position on the grid, to 3rd position in his Murray Taylor Racing for Britain Ralt. More about Racing for Britain later, because it's thanks to them that Andrew Gilbert Scott is there, and Berg is challenging and smokes all his tyres and loses a place to Gilbert Scott and spins off on lap 1. Alan Berg gone right over the top and has virtually put himself out of the running. So Dumfries leads, Gilbert Scott is second, Cor Oyser is third, and in fourth position is Mario Heighton.
Well, Murray, there, Alan Berg, it's the classic overtaking at Thruxton. You need to go down the outside of the chicane because the experienced Johnny Dumfries kept the tight line. Alan Berg tried to do it on the first lap. We see it now. Alan Berg slipstreaming down the straight. This is the way to overtake. It's down the outside for the chicane. Berg tried it very early in the race to try and get past Dumfries, but he just left it too late braking, trying to get round the outside, locked a wheel, tried to recover and still make the chicane, but failed to do so and spun across the curbs.
And what a penalty he's paid. So the leader is Johnny Dumfries, and he's now really in a very commanding psychological position, because look at the clear gap that he has between himself and the second place man, Andrew Gilbert Scott. And it has to be said, as they go round the left-hander after Church and down towards Brooklands, that Alan Berg has this tendency to be impetuous at the early stages of the race. Johnny Dumfries really pressing on.
Yes, a big mistake there. He's got the brake, and there's a lot of brake locking in the background as well. More spinning, a Bella there, spins at the chicane as Berg did, but Johnny Dumfries tried to make the most of the brake and really overdid it going into the chicane there, and Gilbert Scott will be closer.
And that is Carlos Abella, the man in the blue and white Rolt. And meantime, Andrew Gilbert Scott has seized his opportunity. Andrew Gilbert Scott from Cookham-Dean, and he's nearly losing it too. Tyres are absolutely critical at Thruxton. It is a very abrasive surface, and we've got two of the finest Formula 3 drivers in the world at the present moment. Johnny Dumfries and Andrew Gilbert Scott battling for position. First and second, they're on lap 3 now. Mario Heighton, the Swiss driver in the Murray-Taylor Rolt, is in third position. Behind Heighton in fourth place is Cor Oyser in the Magnum. Then in fifth position, well, you're looking at the leaders now, and in fifth position it's David Hunt, and they come down to club again. Now, is Dumfries going to get it totally right this time?
It's almost too steady there, Murray. He realised he made a mistake last lap, and this time he almost braked too early, and Gilbert Scott now really harrying the leader.
And they have just lapped. Alan Berg has gone into the pits with a tyre problem, and Keith Fine, who's leading the one-year-old cars section of this Formula 3 race, of which more anon, is in trouble too. But this is the race on lap 4. A tremendous struggle between the championship leader in the silver and yellow car, Johnny Dumfries, and behind him in the Murray-Taylor Racing for Britain Rolt is Andrew Gilbert Scott, and there is Berg. You can see the problem. They've been changing tyres on Alan Berg's Eddie Jordan Racing Rolt. Eddie Jordan, the ebullient Irishman who manages several of the drivers who are in this event. But Alan Berg's really blown it. Third position in the championship, but way down in this race, and there's going to be a new third place man. And look at the leaders, there could be soon a new leader, because Andrew Gilbert Scott is challenging Dumfries on the outside as they come into club again. This is to complete lap 4, which is 1/5 distance. Over the line they go now, and you can see that Mario Heighton is close behind them, and Cor Oyser is in fourth position. Now there is Oyser, the Dutchman in the John Robinson Magnum, of which several examples have been sold. And Gilbert Scott is showing himself and his car, not just in the mirrors to Johnny Dumfries, but bodily, as he tries first of all to take him on the left, then on the right. So let's watch this as they approach the big bump at Church Corner, which they take at about 6,000 RPM, 140 miles an hour. There's the bump, but don't lose sight of the fact that Mario Heighton, the third man, number 9 in the Rolt, is closing up on both the leaders. This is the man born in Stockholm. He comes from Geneva, ex-karts, ex-Formula Ford 1600, and he's yet to score in the championship. Competing quarter distance, there is Heighton, number 9, Mario Heighton. So it's Rolt leading, Rolt second, Rolt third as far as cars. It is Dumfries leading Andrew Gilbert-Scott and has got a bit of a breakaway.
Well, Murray, I think the fact that Mario Heighton here is catching the leaders shows that Johnny Dumfries is running a very conservative pace. Whether he's got a problem or not, I wouldn't expect Heighton to be catching like this, although Dumfries seems to be settling down now. I think maybe when he went over the top at first, he slowed himself down, which enabled the others to catch, but now he seems to have steadied himself, and maybe he can ease away and leave Andrew Gilbert-Scott to the challenge from Mario Heighton.
Well, they're getting spread out a bit now. This is lap 6. It is a 20-lap race. The lap record is held by Dave Scott, who is racing in Formula 2 in Japan this season. 1 minute 13.6, and that's a speed of 115 miles an hour. And Dumfries was marginally slower than that in practice for pole position. So there goes Heighton, and in the background, Cor Oyser. It's the 3 Rolts leading. Cor Oyser, the next car that you'll see, there he is in 4th position. And behind Cor Oyser in 5th position now, it's still David Hunt. Then behind David Hunt, it is Ross Cheever, who is the brother of Formula 1 Alfa Romeo driver Eddie Cheever. And the second man, Andrew Gilbert-Scott, you will see has got proudly written on the side of his car, and they're starting to lap tail-enders now, those 3 words, Racing for Britain, and he's got through that sponsorship, which has been raised as a result of contributions from thousands of British enthusiasts. There he is, there's the Racing for Britain car. And thousands of British enthusiasts have contributed various amounts of money, and that money has been given to the drivers in Formula 3 and Formula 4 that those enthusiasts think most merit it. And it's very significant that it was the Racing for Britain organisation that enabled Martin Brundle to do so well in Formula 3 last year, and this year Brundle is driving a Formula 1 Tyrrell. And Dumfries completes lap 7 in the lead from Gilbert-Scott, with Heighton still hanging on in 3rd position, with Oyser still in 4th position, with David Hunt 5th, and a colossal scrap going on for 6th position between Paul Radicic and Ross Cheever. They're the first 3 through. Now there is Cor Oyser. Behind Cor Oyser is David Hunt. And then you see the white car of New Zealander Paul Radicic, and the black one, 6th and 7th, these 2 are Ross Cheever. And Paul Radicic is racing for New Zealand in the same way, and for the money that has been raised in the same way as the second place man Gilbert-Scott is doing, racing for Britain.
Yes, Murray, though Radish seems to be pulling away slightly from Cheever now. Radish, of course, was quicker in practice and maybe had a bad start, maybe got caught out badly by the spinning we saw in the early stages, which rather split up the midfield pack. So I think Radish there is climbing up through the field, having been held up. How far he can get, I don't know. But now we see Gilbert-Scott challenging again to Johnny Dumfries. David Price in the pits and Les Thacker, the BP backer, are going to be getting a little bit more worried as Andrew Gilbert-Scott remounts his attack.
And Russell Spence, the man who won so brilliantly at Zolder last weekend, is into the pits with a bent nose fin, so he's obviously made contact somewhere, and like Alan Berg will therefore be effectively out of the points. And this gives the amazing, and I use the word advisedly, Johnny Dumfries an even bigger chance, because Dumfries, with a full season of Formula 3 racing, and you're looking across the circuit at him now, Dumfries, with a full season of Formula 3 racing behind him last year, has really come good in 1984. There's the second place man, Andrew Gilbert-Scott. But Johnny Dumfries, after the usual apprenticeship in karts and Formula Ford 1600, had some success in 1983, including doing very well at Donington in the European round before he went off. But now he's put it all together. He's got the right sort of backing. He's got Dave Price and a supercar. And look at the way he's used it. First at Silverstone, first at Thruxton, first at Donington, beat all the best of Europe in that round. Then he won at Silverstone again, and last weekend at Zolder was the first time he had failed to win, and there he finished second. As a result of which, he's leading the championship with 35 points, a clear 11 points ahead of Russell Spence, who is effectively out of the race.
I was just about to say then that Johnny Dumfries is settling down into the mature drives that we've seen earlier, but then on the left-hand part of the complex, possibly the most important corner, again the car was getting sideways, he clipped the curb a bit, but it doesn't seem to have done any damage to his lead.
Well, Tiff, how worried is Dumfries going to be? We're coming up to the completion of half distance. He can see the two behind him in his mirrors. What will be going through his mind?
Well, I think now that he's got this breathing space, and in fact in his mirrors now, we're going to see there's almost a battle going on for second place, which is going to help Johnny a lot. Now Andrew Gilbert-Scott's going to be busier with Mario Heighton there, pressing him. And if Johnny Dumfries can now get his head down and not make any mistakes, as we've seen him do in earlier races, not miss a gear, a single miss of a gear change, and these two will be right off his gearbox.
And the really interesting thing is that Mario Heighton, the third of these three cars, battling against Gilbert-Scott for second place, is actually the fastest man on the course at the present moment. He's lapped in 1 minute 14, and through he goes. Now, can Gilbert-Scott retake the position? That was a marvellous bit of driving. Heighton just saw his opportunity, and like the eye of a needle, slipped through. And I was saying he's just done a lap in 1 minute 14.17. And that is a speed of 114.3, and that is a lap record.
Well, here now, Murray, you can see Heighton's forced Andrew Gilbert-Scott to take the inside line on the right-hander, which means he's slower through the right-hander than Mario, and Mario then dives up the inside for the left-hand bit. Caught Andrew a little bit asleep there, because Andrew tried that manoeuvre on Johnny Dumfries earlier. Dumfries blocked Andrew. This time Andrew failed to block Mario Heighton from coming through to second place.
And there they are. You can see that Heighton is still second, being harried every inch of the way by Gilbert-Scott. Into the pits has gone Cor Oyser, the Dutchman who was in fourth position. Another bit of bad luck, because he was put out of the lead at Zolder, very much on his home ground in the Benelux countries, last weekend by a small metal bush which cost about 65 pence. Bitter luck. And if they get that Magnum really to complete a race, and they've had problems doing that this year, it's going to be a force that will start to worry the Rooks drivers. Well, Oyster's problem is engine. I can see in the background his car being pushed away from the pit, so Oyster is out of the race. Now, the question is, can Mario Heighton catch Johnny Dumfries, who is leading, and there is the gap. Dumfries in the silver car. There is Heighton, number 9, from Switzerland. So it's the Dave Price Rult, driven by Johnny Dumfries, leading. It is the Murray-Taylor Rult, driven by Mario Heighton, second. It is the Murray-Taylor Rult, driven by Andrew Gilbert-Scott in third position. Then in fourth place now, it is the New Zealander Paul Radisich. Fifth is Russell Spence, and is Cheever, not Russell Spence, my apologies. Ross Cheever, and there go the leaders. Now, Dumfries is going to have a new challenge, because definitely Mario Heighton is clawing back time and distance and space between himself and the race leader, with Ross Cheever in that 6th position.
Well, certainly, Murray, here, Mario Heighton driving the race of his life. This is certainly the best Formula 3 race I think I've seen him have. He's probably in the best prepared car he's ever driven in Formula 3. This year he's driving for the Murray-Taylor Racing. And it almost looks to me as though he's running less rear wing than the other two cars. All three of these cars are all three powered by Volkswagen engines, as opposed to the Toyotas of Alan Berg and Cor Oyser. So they've all got the same horsepower, but Heighton there, that little strip of white, the rear wing, looks slightly flatter than the other cars he's racing against, enabling him to go slightly quicker down the straight, as long as he can get around the corners at the same speed.
coming through to complete lap 13 out of 20, and it's still Dumfries, Highton, Gilbert Scott, Paul Radisich is 4th, David Hunt is 5th, and Ross Cheever is in 6th position. And in 7th place behind Ross Cheever is Eric Lang, the American driver, as is Ross Cheever. But watch this. If you've got stopwatches, take the gap between the silver car leading Johnny Dumfries, who currently is on his way to his 5th win of the year in the 6 races that he has driven in. This is round 5 out of 16 in the Marlboro Formula 3 British Championship of 1984. Most of the races are in Britain, 13 of them to be exact, but there are some continental races, including the one at Zolder last weekend and one coming up at the Nürburgring, which is going to be really something to see at this new German circuit based on the old one. Going into Club, the chicane, lap 14, Dumfries, there is Highton still in 2nd position. The lap record, 1:14.17, and Johnny Dumfries has just gone round in 1 minute 14.5. and that is a speed of some 114 miles an hour. That's Highton. There is Dumfries. There is Gilbert Scott. And at the present moment, it would seem that none of them can make any impression on the others.
No, Murray, Johnny Dumfries has got into a very nice, smooth groove now, and Mario Highton's really going to have to do something to catch him. There's only another 5 laps to go, and it means he's going to have to catch it sort of almost half a second a lap if he's going to have a chance of overtaking towards the end of the race. As it is, I think now Johnny Dumfries, he's really settled down. There he is, using an unusual line down to Church. Here comes Church, flat in 5th, the car leaping over the bump at the curb, right by that marshal's post. But he's very smoothly driving at the moment, where he can have the chicane now.
Great Britain is really coming good in motor racing after a period in the doldrums as far as drivers are concerned in the last few years. We not only have 4 drivers in Formula 1 Grand Prix racing this year, but we've got drivers of the calibre of Andrew Gilbert Scott, number 4 there, and the leader, number 1, Johnny Dumfries, coming up. And Formula 3 these days is very much the proving ground for Formula 1. As I said earlier on, we've got 2 super drivers in Grand Prix racing this year, Senna, Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian, and Martin Brundle, the Englishman, who were in this class last year. So if Dumfries continues to do as well during the rest of the season, and I see no reason why he should not, as he has been doing so far, he is very much a prospect for Formula 1, because the Formula 3 drivers prove conclusively over the years that they can step straight from one of these 2-litre cars into the 1.5-litre turbocharged cars that are in Grand Prix racing these days. And Dumfries is coming down now to complete shortly the 16th out of 20 laps in seemingly a commanding position. It would look as though Mario Highton in 2nd place is making no impression on the leader, although he's... I wonder, Tiff, if the tyres are starting to go. They look very, very slidey on the club chicane.
Yes, Thruxton, the hardest circuit on tyres in this country. It's very abrasive and there's a lot of high-speed cornering out the back. And the tyres can overheat if you ask them to do too much. But these, they're all running a standard tyre, a standard compound, the same one. And it's relatively hard. And although I think later the Formula 2 drivers will be in trouble, these Formula 3 tyres should do this race without going off.
Well, both the 2nd and the 3rd men in the championship are effectively out of this race, because Russell Spence has definitely retired, and Spence is in 2nd position in the championship at the present moment. So that means to say that Andrew Gilbert Scott, who is in 3rd place in this race, is piling up the points to move up in the championship, and it means, of course, that the leader, Johnny Dumfries, is pretty soon going to be in an impregnable position as far as winning the 1984 Formula 3 British Championship is concerned, with 4 wins out of 5 races and a 2nd place in the other one. This is the conclusion of lap 17, and the gaps, respectively, between the first and second are 1.5, and between second and fourth are 2.3 seconds. So there's what, about 4 seconds separating the first and third men, they being Dumfries leading. Third is Gilbert Scott, and we look now at the second as he comes out of the left-hander at Cobb, goes into the right-hander at Seagrave. Mario Heighton, who has not had the best of 1984s so far. 7th at Silverstone, 4th at Zolder, and he had some problems which prevented him in driving in the other Formula 3 races. But now he's really come back with a bang into that second place, coming round the right-hander on the way to Church now. Round Goodwood, there's Church, that's where the big bump is. Now they're on the fastest part of the course. 5th gear, 140 miles an hour as they go round the left-hand sweeper at Brooklands, down through the gears into second gear for the club chicane. Dumfries has got 2 laps to go at the end of this one, and if Mario Heighton has got anything left, he's got to start producing it now.
Yes, certainly, Murray. With Dumfries on this sort of form and having had these couple of 4 wins under his belt, it's going to be very hard to beat him now. It's a shame we lost Alan Berg in a moment of sunshine madness at the end of that first lap. Tony Trevor, of course, 4th on the grids, disappeared off the lap charts. And we lost a lot of the front runners, and now Dumfries under no pressure at all, and he should be able to reel off these couple of laps to the delight of David Price and his team of mechanics.
Berg out, Russell Spence out. There are the first 3. This is lap 19, 20-lap race. Russell Spence sitting in the pits disconsolately. The leader, Johnny Dumfries, rounds Church Corner, sees a clear track ahead of him, as he has done the whole race, of course. Both a very strong position and a very worrying position, because you know you're in the lead, and the worry is that you've got to keep everybody else behind you. So down into second once again. Now, can Heighton do anything? I very, very much doubt it. There's Heighton in second place. Now the gap between Johnny Dumfries and Mario Heighton as they go into lap 20 is 2.03 seconds, and I see no way that Johnny Dumfries can do anything other than achieve his 5th win in 6 races with a second place in the other one, other than mechanical trouble, because even if Heighton can catch him, and I don't think he has a hope of doing so, Dumfries can drive tactically and ensure that he doesn't get past him. So now the man from Fulham is on his way to his 5th win, and he's starting to get somewhere near the record of Ayrton Senna last season, who won 9 in a row. Well, Dumfries isn't going to do that, but he could well match the brilliant Brazilian in terms of total victories. And Mario Heighton will have every reason to feel very proud of himself with a second place. That's going to give him a good few points to help him up the championship ladder. But it's Dumfries' race. As it was in practice, he took pole position. He has commanded the race from the moment the lights change from red to green to this moment when he goes across the line to win from Mario Heighton second by 2.3 seconds, with Andrew Gilbert Scott in 3rd position and a clear track behind them showing how much the first 3 were ahead of the rest. And the one who comes now into 4th position should be, indeed it is, the New Zealander Paul Radisic. Then there's a gap before it should be David Hunt in 5th position, and Ross Cheever in 6th place. And there is Alan Berg's downfall. The Canadian trying to take Dumfries as they go into the chicane, locks up, spins off, which allows Andrew Gilbert Scott to go through into 2nd position, which allowed Cor Oyster to go to 3rd and Mario Heighton to go to 4th, and the rest to pass the Canadian, who went out of the race, which was won, of course, by Dumfries, with Heighton in 2nd position, Gilbert Scott in 3rd place, Paul Radisic in 4th, David Hunt in 5th, Ross Cheever in 6th, and Dumfries has increased his already considerable leading margin in the British Formula 3 Championship.